Hello, everybody. As James said, I'm Patricia Scroggs. I'm the director of the Charles B. Rangel International Affairs Program. I have been with the program for about 8 years now. It's a fantastic program, and I'm really proud to be part of it. We have absolutely wonderful fellows, which I think is the best part of our fellowship. We have two with us today who are going to speak a little bit later. They are Marita Lamb, who is a 2008 Rangel Fellow, originally from Philadelphia, went to Spelman, and then did her graduate work at Georgetown. She is now in the Foreign Service. And Jessica Kuhn, who's a 2012 Rangel Fellow from the great state of Washington, went to the University of Washington, is doing her graduate work at Tufts University, and she'll be joining the Foreign Service this summer. So very briefly, I want to introduce myself. Again, I am the program manager, but before I did this, I was a Foreign Service officer. So I spent 20 years in the Foreign Service, a job that I truly loved. I came in thinking I would spend most of my career in Latin America. I actually spent most of it in Asia. So I served in Japan and Korea, Mexico, traveled throughout Southeast Asia, as well as Europe, and I think about 25 different countries during my Foreign Service career. I got to do some incredible things, from doing POW MIA work that helped us open our relationships with Vietnam, riding camels through the Gobi Desert with the Foreign Minister of Mongolia, representing the United States at multilateral meetings in Asia, working on issues like trafficking in persons, trade, human rights, a variety of different issues. What I liked best, I think, about my Foreign Service career is that it's a career full of change. Every couple of years, we change what we do, where we do it. No two jobs are ever alike for us. No two careers are ever alike. So if you're a person who really likes to do different things, who likes to learn constantly, who likes to be intellectually challenged, it's a terrific career. I like the fact that what we do makes a difference in the lives of Americans and people around the world. And I really like the people I worked with in the Foreign Service. So with that very brief overview of me, I think I'll start talking about the program. The Rangel program began in 2002. It was based on a desire to promote both excellence and diversity in the Foreign Service. The program is funded by the U.S. Department of State and managed by Howard University. So if those of you think, what does Howard have to do with this? It's the fact that we hold the grant for the program. So you don't have to go to Howard. You don't have to do your master's, your undergraduate. However, the program is based here at Howard University, and we are very proud of that. So let's see what I want to tell you about the program. We just entered our 11th year. We continue to, I think, improve all the time. There are two components to the program. The first one is what you're applying for, which is the Rangel International Affairs Graduate Fellowship. The second is the Rangel International Affairs Summer Enrichment Program. I'm only going to talk about the Rangel International Affairs Graduate Fellowship, but do be careful as you're applying that you're actually applying to the right program, because both are on our website. Okay. Let's see, just to tell you a little bit about the program. So far, we've had about 160 fellows who come through our program. Of that, right now, about 40 are in graduate school, about 120 are in the Foreign Service. We're very proud of our Rangel Fellows, both the ones in graduate school and the ones overseas. I'm just trying to think of what I saw today that they're doing. Let's see, we have someone today who is serving in Sarajevo, who has been participating in an LGBT walk to promote International Human Rights Weeks. I have another person who is busy coordinating the or helping to coordinate the visit of President Obama and many senior officials for the memorial for Nelson Mandela in South Africa. There's another person today who's doing cultural outreach in Kathmandu, Nepal. Somebody else today is trying to help improve educational opportunities in Bolivia through a unique outreach program that she's working on that involves online education. So I think our Rangel Fellows are making a difference throughout the world. Let's see, let me quickly go over what the program is. So the Graduate Fellowship, again, it's for people who want a career in the Foreign Service of the U.S. Department of State. That is what the fellowship is about. If you are selected, our basic elements, we give an award of up to $90,000 over 2 years for tuition, fees, living expenses, and summer internships. An orientation, which begins the program, an 11-week internship on Capitol Hill the first summer, a 10-week internship in a U.S. embassy the second summer, and mentoring from a Foreign Service officer. At the end of the fellowship, you receive employment with the Foreign Service. There's only one exception to the employment, and that's the fact you have to be able to get medical and security clearances. And I'm very happy to talk about that a little bit later. Okay, so I say we give you lots of money, and we do. So we say up to $90,000 over 2 years. What is that? Basically what that is that we're going to give the university you select $20,000. It goes directly to them, and it pays for your tuition and fees. We give you every year $15,000. Usually it's given in August, and that covers you for the academic year. That's going to pay for your room and board and maybe your books. But that's up to you to manage. Another $10,000 is for your internships. In the first summer, it's on Capitol Hill. Second summer, it's overseas. Of the $10,000, about $7,000 is for stipends. $3,000 covers housing, transportation, things like that. Also, as I'm going to discuss later, some graduate programs are going to provide supplemental financial assistance. Okay, so orientation. Actually, I'm going to briefly go through this stages, and then I'll get to this. So you're going to apply by January 17th. You're going to know whether or not you are a finalist by mid-February. It'll probably be around February 25th this year, I think. We'll let you know. If so, we'll bring you in. You'll interview for 1 day between March 12th and 14th. We're going to let you know by March 15th whether or not you have the fellowship. So we act very quickly. By mid-May, you're here joining us at Howard University. The first week is an orientation. It's a great chance to get to know one another and get to know the State Department, a lot more about the program, and a lot more about the Foreign Service. You'll get medical and security clearances at least started during that week. We do a lot of professional development activities, so you'll work on your professional writing skills. We do, negotiating skills and crisis management. We start talking about the State Department assessments, which for you will be a Foreign Service Officer test and the Foreign Service Oral Assessment. I'll talk about those, but really briefly. You are required at some point during your 2 years to take the Foreign Service Officer test, which is our written test. You are required to take it. You are not required to pass it, although most Rangel Fellows do. You are required to pass the State Department oral assessment, but you have 5 years after you start the Foreign Service to do this, and you have 2 years of the program. So that's 7 years. You will pass. We have yet to have anybody who hasn't. Again, during orientation, we go to the State Department. We have a lot of meetings with FSOs. We do orientation to your congressional internship. You'll have professional development activities throughout this summer. We spend a lot of time together. You'll be working on the Hill, but we probably see you 2 or 3 times a week, which we really enjoy. Okay. Congressional internship. That's the first thing. That starts at the end of May. We place you all over the Hill. So some people work in the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. Other people might work on the House subcommittee that handles Asia and the Pacific, or Africa and global health, or counterterrorism. We certainly take into account what you're most interested in. One of the greatest things about having 20 people on the Hill in a summer is that you form an incredible network for one another. What that means is that if there's an interesting hearing that involves international affairs someplace on the Hill, one of you is going to know about it. In 5 minutes, you send an email out, all 20 of you know about it. So you really know what's going on the Hill. Also, if there's an activity after work, very often different embassies have receptions or different organizations. We often say there's no such thing as free food on Capitol Hill that a Rangel Fellow does not know about. Again, it's a terrific thing, and this is one of the things that makes the Rangel Fellowship different from the Pickering Fellowship. Our beginning was with Congress, and so we like to bring in people to the Foreign Service that understand the role of Congress in foreign policy. We find it'll be extremely useful during your career. So that is our first summer spent working on Capitol Hill. And again, we have placed people in the House, in the Senate. Our fellows do fantastic work during the summer. After that, it's time to start graduate school. You can go to any good graduate program in an area of relevance to the Foreign Service, your two-year master's programs. So the most common ones are Masters in International Relations, Masters in Public Policy, Masters in Public Administration, Masters in Business Administration, Area Studies. I don't know, there's so many different names for the programs now. Sports medicine will not work. However, languages, economics, and there's a lot of different areas that are relevant to the Foreign Service. Throughout graduate school, you have to be able to keep a GPA of 3.2. Rangel Fellows right now are in programs around the country, certainly in DC, Johns Hopkins, Georgetown, American, Fletcher, up at Tufts, Harvard, but also out in California at the Monterey Institute and University of California, San Diego. We've had people at University of Denver. So there are many good programs around the country. Now, I mentioned that we pay $20,000 towards tuition, and I know that sounds really good until you look at some of the schools you're applying to. So let's say you're applying to Columbia University School of International and Public Affairs. It's a terrific program, but it's also an expensive program. I think right now it costs around $47,000 a year. For at least 2 Rangel Fellows every year, Columbia will pay the remainder, which is worth about $27,000 per year, or about, $54,000 over 2 years. So it's another added benefit. There are many other Rangel partner schools. I'm just listing a few of them here. Princeton, Columbia, Georgetown, Tufts, University of Denver, Duke, Syracuse, Johns Hopkins, University of Texas, Austin, University of California, University of Michigan, American, University of California, Berkeley, Florida International University, New School, also University of California, Berkeley. Now, these are all terrific programs, and if you'll just email us, we can also send you what their specific offer is, because each one of them has a slightly different offer. That said, you are not required to go to these schools. You can go to any good U.S. university, and very often, because you're terrific, they're going to give you additional funding. However, we also talk to them about funding if we have a Rangel Fellow that goes there. Our goal is to get you out of graduate school with as little additional debt as possible. Okay, so that's graduate school. So between your first and second year of graduate school, you're going to do an overseas internship. You will tell us where you want to go. So let's say you're interested in Latin America. I'm going to ask you for 3 choices. You might say Lima, La Paz, and Panama City. And chances are you're going to one of these places. The overseas internship is really helpful because not only does it show you the work of the Foreign Service, it helps you understand what you're doing in graduate school, but also helps you pick your career track. For Rangel Fellows, you are able to pick any career track in the Foreign Service. The career tracks are political, economic, public diplomacy, consular, and management. You have about a year and a half into the program to do it, and so your summer overseas internship allows you to work in the section or work in perhaps a different section and really make sure that is the one you're most interested in. It's a terrific summer, and our fellows really do great work. The embassies know that you are a future colleague and treat you that way, and so it makes for a terrific internship. One of the benefits is that you can take the experience, both of your congressional internship and your overseas internship, and bring it back into your classroom as you go back into your second year. So you finish your second year and you join the Foreign Service. So if you graduate, let's say in May, you may be joining in June or July, let's say. It's, again, terrific experience. Now, you need to know that you want to join the Foreign Service to do the Rangel program. That's because there's a 5-year service obligation. We're very serious. We look at this not as a scholarship program, but really as a professional development program for those people who really want to be foreign service officers. So if you look at the program and think, wow, what a great thing. I get funding for graduate school and I get a career I'm really, really interested in, absolutely apply to the Rangel program. If you look at it and say, wow, I really want the money, but I don't know about that foreign service, then it's probably not the right program for you. Because again, we really want people who are enthusiastic. Every year, about 25,000 people start the process of applying for the foreign service. Depending on the year, we might take, I don't know, 300 to 800 people. So to get into the foreign service is something very special. If you get the fellowship, you will get into the foreign service. Again, I said there was one exception, and that has to do with clearances. Let me tell you about that briefly. There are two types of, well, actually three types of clearances. First one is a medical clearance. You need to be healthy enough to serve around the world. The second one is a security clearance, and very closely aligned to that is what's called a suitability clearance. What that is that you need to be able to get a top secret security clearance. You will be representing the United States overseas. That is a big honor and a big responsibility. You'll be handling very sensitive information. You'll be involved in very sensitive activities that involve a great deal of judgment and integrity in your dealings. You may deal with a lot of money during your career. So, of course, we're looking for people who are responsible, who are honest, and who are prudent in their activities. So what happens for the medical clearance? That is the first part. You will do your medical clearance the first week. Um, Again, it's hard to tell you. I mean, the medical clearances have changed so much over the years, and things that used to mean that you could not get a medical clearance, something like, I don't know, having epilepsy, um, or a variety, or diabetes, let's say, do not necessarily mean you wouldn't get in now. I think probably one of the best ways for you to think about it is, are you comfortable serving overseas in areas that perhaps you wouldn't have immediate access to first rate medical care? Again, medical clearances are done on a case by case basis. We pay for the medical exam. Um, Again, it's done very quickly. Security clearances, you're actually going to start the process during the interview, fill out the paperwork, and it goes very quickly. Again, for security clearances, if you have a question, you can always call me. I've been doing this for quite a while. I don't get to make the decisions, but I have been involved in it for a long time. I think generally, think about the fact we're looking for people that have shown integrity and judgment throughout their lives. The most common things for young people that can be problematic are things like use of illegal drugs, uh, academic dishonesty, financial uh, irresponsibility. And by all of these things, no one's looking for you to be perfect. Again, many young people will use drugs at some point in their lives. Um, it's not that you never could have used them, it's just that there needs to be a period. And again, they look at it on a case by case basis. What was it? When did you do it? Um, a rule of thumb, a year. Um, Putting a year between you and whatever the activity is probably a good thing. Although, again, they look at you as a whole, so there's no way to take one fact and make a decision on something like that. Financial irresponsibility, that does not mean you don't have any debt. Many people have debt. It just means that you're dealing with it in a responsible way, trying to um, handle it responsibly, pay it, manage it, things like that. Again, there's information on security clearances on the State Department website. If you have a specific question, you can ask me. I will keep your question confidential. I do not share it with the selection panel or anyone else, so that you really can talk to me if you have a question about that. I know it's an issue that sometimes people have, and again, I am very open to talking about it. Okay, so those are your security clearances. Okay. You joining the Foreign Service, again, sorry, I digress, but let me go back into it. Joining the Foreign Service is great. You can see our slide. I'm giving you some pictures of what we call Flag Day. What Flag Day is, it's you, again, you join the Foreign Service with a group of people. The second day you're there, you get your bid list, which you tell people. Then you tell them where you would like to go. They work with you, and then about 4 weeks into it, we have something called Flag Day. They post a big flag up on it. They call your name. You run up. That is where you're going. So it's really exciting. You do have to be worldwide available. They do care what your preferences are. But you do have to be willing to serve anywhere. Okay, so actually, I think I'm going to stop there, and then I'll go back through at the end what it, the eligibility and how you apply and what makes for a competitive application. But at this point, I want to actually send it over to two of our Rangel Fellows who can talk more about their experiences. The first person I want to introduce you to is Jessica Kuhn. Jessica is coming to us from the Fletcher School at Tufts University, and she is a 2012 Rangel Fellow. And with that, let me turn it over to Jessica.
Hi everyone, thanks Ms. Scroggs for having me. It's nice to be talking with some potential future Rangel Fellows. So I'll tell you a little bit about my background. Like Ms. Scroggs said, I did my undergraduate work at the University of Washington. I studied international affairs. I studied abroad during my BA in West Africa, and I was interested in development and international studies since that time. And we also had a diplomat in residence at the University of Washington who often gave talks about the Foreign Service. So I was interested in a career in the Foreign Service for quite some time and had known about the work that Foreign Service officers do, but didn't know much about the Rangel program until a couple of years after I graduated. After I graduated, I worked in international grant making, and I did some research abroad for a nonprofit. But I knew I wanted to apply to graduate school, so I researched schools for a while and also programs that could help fund my graduate degree. And then I applied to graduate school in the Rangel program 2 years after I got my bachelor's degree. And the Rangel program made a lot of sense for me given my commitment to a career both in public service but also in international affairs. And like I said, I had a strong interest in the Foreign Service for many years before that. My experience in the Rangel program has been overwhelmingly positive. It's been a fantastic experience. I did my congressional internship on the Hill with Senator Maria Cantwell. She's a Democrat from Washington State. And I did mostly foreign affairs legislative work for her. So I got to go to a lot of Senate Foreign Relations Committee hearings when Secretary Kerry was the chairman of that committee. It was really exciting. I got to see a lot of fantastic people and people that have been people I've looked up to for a long time coming to the Hill to talk at briefings or hearings, and it was a very enriching experience. I worked on a lot of reports throughout my time there on foreign policy issues relevant to the senator and to Washington State. I learned a lot. I had a great time that summer in DC and getting to know the fellows and living with everyone at Howard University. It was a lot of fun and a really great time. And after that, I started my graduate studies at the Fletcher School, which again has been a fantastic experience. I absolutely love the Fletcher School. It was my first choice for graduate school for several reasons. But I study international law and diplomacy, and also international economics there. It's been a really great for improving my kind of policy memo style writing skills, interpersonal skills, public policy decision-making skills, networking obviously, and kind of group work and oral presentations. So it's been a very enriching experience and built a great network here and really enjoyed my time. I then did my overseas internship in Manila in the Philippines in the economics section of the embassy. While I was there, I was working on developing a new website for the embassy to respond more effectively to disasters in the Philippines. So as I'm sure most of you know, that became a very pertinent issue as of late, and the website that I developed during my time there is now up and running and accessible from the homepage of U.S. Embassy Manila's website. So as you can see, we work on really important projects, and like Ms. Scroggs said, they really did treat me like a foreign service officer because they knew that I would be their future colleague. So I work on really substantive issues, and I felt like an integral part of the team. So I had a really great time in the Philippines. I had a great summer, made a lot of friends, got to know some future colleagues. It was really a fantastic experience. In terms of what I've gotten out of the Rangel program, I think, Mr. Grobbs mentioned this a little bit, but you really make an incredible group of lifelong friends. I still talk to my Rangel Fellow friends on a daily basis. I live with one of the people that I met in DC who's a Rangel Fellow with me. Just a few minutes ago before this presentation, I was responding to a group email of my Rangel Fellow class, wishing each other good luck on finals week. We're still very supportive of one another. It's really nice to have that encouragement and that motivation in graduate school, and to know that these people are going to be my friends and colleagues for a long time. So that was a great asset of the program. In addition, you'll just get excellent mentors, both within the Foreign Service, but other people that are in the Rangel network and community. So it's really great professional development. We also did workshops over the summer on budgeting and on how to get the most out of graduate school. Those are great, and of course, like I mentioned, very rewarding internship experiences. And in terms of my foreign service career, I plan to join in the political cone this coming summer. And I have an interest in women's issues and development, as I mentioned, and political issues like human rights. So I'm excited to get started, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you all may have. Thanks.
Great. Thank you so much, Jess. Let me now introduce Marita Lamb.
Hello, everyone. Like Patricia said, my name is Marita Lamb. A bit about my background. I am originally from Philadelphia, and I attended college at Spelman in Atlanta, where I studied international affairs with political science. We also had a diplomat in residence at Spelman College, but we were also very fortunate at Spelman to have two very prestigious women who have worked in the Foreign Service as Spelman alum. So the legacy of Spelman within the Foreign Service was something that I learned about very early in my Spelman career. I studied abroad in Europe and very quickly caught the travel bug. And after college, I joined the Peace Corps, where I was a rural health volunteer in the Dominican Republic. Upon coming back to the United States, I was very interested in applying for graduate school. I felt like I really wanted to work in public service overseas, and I was trying to find that perfect job opportunity for myself. And a very good friend who's also a Foreign Service officer more or less brought the whole notion of the State Department back into my scope. And once I thought about it and considered it, it made perfect sense for me. And so I applied for the Rangel Fellowship in 2007, actually, and was selected as a fellow in 2008. And prior to beginning my studies at Georgetown's Public Policy Institute, I moved to DC and began my internship experience with Rangel. When I began my summer internship on the Hill, very much like Jessica, it was a great opportunity to learn not only about the fellowship and international affairs as it relates to its relationship with Congress, but also to learn about the fellowship, the State Department, and about being a professional in Washington, D.C. There were great opportunities. I worked in the office of Representative Linda Sanchez from California, and as a legislative intern, I had a number of very interesting responsibilities and interesting projects to work on that really helped me develop in the areas of writing and reporting, and also networking, which is something that's very, very important, not only on the Hill, but very much in the State Department. Getting yourself out there and also understanding how things work and how what role you play in the overall process. And so the summer on the Hill was very, very interesting, very rewarding. And I still have many friends from the Hill that I made at that time. With graduate school, I studied public policy with a focus on international development. And that was something that I really, really enjoyed. It was very rigorous, but I really appreciated it because I came from a liberal arts institution. And so I really wanted a program that would challenge me with hard skills and would help me understand from a policy perspective the economic impact or cost benefit. And my program definitely gave me the hard skills needed to really be able to analyze policies from a different point of view. And so that was very, very good. But the Rangel program throughout that process they were very supportive and very helpful. So whenever I had any questions about graduate school life or if there were any sort of financial aid concerns, they were on top of it. And actually, it was never actually a problem because they're very good and communicated very well with both myself and my institution. My summer internship for graduate school was in Guatemala City. And at that time, I was on the fence about which cone I would ultimately select. So initially, I began thinking about joining the Foreign Service as a political officer. My internship was in the public diplomacy section, and it was a great internship. I ventured down to Guatemala during the summer, and whenever you get to an embassy or if you ever, when you're working in your internship, you'll see that the summer is a big transition period. And so as an intern, as soon as I arrived to post, I very much showed my enthusiasm about jumping in and rolling up my sleeves and learning about the jobs in the embassy, but also taking on additional responsibilities not originally assigned to me. And my bosses very much enjoyed my spirit and were very willing to give me opportunities to work on that were not originally assigned. And so I was able to travel around the country with an FSN, holding meetings by myself with the FSN. And these are things that you would not think as an intern that you would generally be given the opportunity to do. But I was really, really fortunate to understand how an embassy operates and to take on these additional responsibilities. And I think that when you enter into the Foreign Service, one of the things that the Rangel program really ensures that we have as fellows is the professionalism needed to really function at a very high level in an embassy. People are very impressed with the knowledge that we have, the experience that we have, and the professionalism that we have. And one of the areas where we really developed this is during that summer internship. So that was a really great experience. And so I still have not told you my cone. I'm actually a consular cone officer. I have prior experience before the Foreign Service, before college, with social services. And my experience in the public diplomacy section really inspired me, and it was a very, very, very hard choice. But for me, the rigorous pace of the consular section and also the very tangible benefits received from helping fellow Americans overseas is something that I very much enjoy. And I was able to put that into practice during my first tour in Bangladesh, where I served in the consular section. And Bangladesh is a very interesting country, and it's a wonderful place to have a first posting because it's full of unique opportunities and challenges, both professionally and personally, for a first tour officer. And I have to say that even though I was in the consular section, I worked on management issues, I worked in public diplomacy issues, I worked on political and economic issues because not only are they connected in many ways to the consular section, but also because of the number of activities and projects that were going on simultaneously in the embassy, I was able to volunteer my services and work in different issues. And so as a generalist in the Foreign Service, you definitely will specialize in one area, but one of the great things about the Foreign Service, in addition to what Patricia said about change, is the fact that you will work in so many different areas and gain so many different skill sets because each job is a different job that requires a different set of skills. And so as a generalist, you get to kind of hone all of these different skill sets and develop yourself in many different ways. And so let's see. I think that I'll stop soon, but before I do, I just want uh, to piggyback off of what Jessica said, which is that within the Rangel Fellowship program, mentorship and also the closeness that we have as fellows is something that's very, very important. Almost from the very, very first day when we were interviewing, almost, there are people who are already in the Foreign Service who are to support us. And this might be with a formal coffee, a formal meeting, them being named our official mentor, and or somebody just checking in with us, making sure that we're okay, answering any questions that we have, because they understand that we're coming in, we're not necessarily aware of all of the ins and outs of the Foreign Service. And so that's something that is very, very helpful when you think about joining a very large, very prestigious institution like the State Department. Having someone who is there already to assist you and answer any sort of questions you might have is just a very big help. But also having people with whom you start your journey with, and that you bond, and you're able to depend on one another at that at the same level is also something that's very, very important. And I think the Rangel program does a great job at ensuring that as fellows we have a wonderful opportunity to really bond as a unit before we get into the State Department and work with our other colleagues. And so I am also ready to answer any questions. I hope I didn't speak too long, and thank you so much for being on the call.
Great. Thank you so much, Marita. Now, if anybody would like to type in questions for the two of them, please go ahead and do it. Okay, I think I'm going to start with the first one, which is, can each of you give me an example of something that you did that you think made a difference either for maybe other Americans or for people overseas?
Should we just jump in and say I'll take this, or?
Yeah, why don't we start with Marita? Is that you?
Yes, that's me. Okay, well, like I said in the consular section, I think that every day there is an opportunity to very directly impact the lives of Americans overseas, and very specifically in Bangladesh, a really big issue that many Americans face, and this is generally faced by young women, is the issue of forced marriages. So in Bangladesh, we had situations where Americans who were living in the United States but were Bangladeshi Americans were brought back to Bangladesh under the guise of visiting a family member, or just being on vacation, and their parents or family members who did not agree with their lifestyle in the United States of America decided to forcibly marry them to someone in Bangladesh. Once these Americans, realized what their situation was, and also that we as the United States Embassy could assist them, they contacted us, and we would work with local law enforcement and also with that person, and also with family members or friends in the United States if they were not able to fund travel back to the United States, to make sure that they got back to the United States. And so, receiving a phone call at 3 o'clock in the morning, which has happened, saying that I am chained to a window or what have you, and I cannot get out of this place, and I want to go back to the United States, and being able to, from that phone call to watching their plane take off, be involved in that process is something that is very, very moving, and it definitely makes you not only appreciate your own situation, but the fact that we're in a country that will ensure that we will do whatever we need to do to get that person back to the United States and back to safety.
Okay, great. Marita, that's a great example. Thanks so much. Jessica, how about you?
Yeah, sure. So I mentioned earlier that I was working on a disaster response website when I was in the Philippines at the economic section in Manila. So a part of that was intended to help not only the embassy but also American citizens to more effectively respond to disasters. So when Typhoon Haiyan hit the Philippines in early November, the website that I'd been developing went live right away, and it had kind of a threefold process. One was to help American companies know where and how to contribute, because often private companies have the most in terms of monetary resources, but they don't know exactly where to give and what to give. So it was helping direct them. It was also to help American citizens who needed consular services to kind of better direct them where to go and what were the best resources, and also to help individual citizens, both Americans but also Filipinos and anyone for that matter, to give more effectively their own personal donations. So what kind of American backed companies are working in the region, NGOs, and different ways in which individuals could help, and the best ways to do that. So it was a nice feeling to be able to know that we contributed both to American citizens, but also all of the people who wanted to help during this tough time in the Philippines.
Great, thank you. I have a question here. What did you think, or do you have any advice on how you made your application strong?
Sure. Well, I guess I would just add, for me, I really focused on my passion for public service, and it's hard really to say in hindsight what it was that made our application strong, but just for me personally, that was a huge component of my application, was my commitment to public service, why I wanted to serve my government, and why I was interested in the Foreign Service, and I made it very personal. It wasn't just a stock answer. It was really my personal motivation for wanting to be a public servant, and kind of how my individual unique story led me to where I am now and why I wanted to be a Rangel Fellow.
I would completely agree with Jessica, and just only add that, really understanding, asking yourself the question before you sit in front of a computer and attempt to type it, why is this important to you? Why do you want to do this? And really, telling your story, because I think at the end of the day, it's everyone's individual passion and commitment to public service and their desire to serve their country that sets them apart and makes them special. And granted, everyone's, everyone's applying and there are only a certain number of slots, but, you cannot think about, everyone else. Just think about your own personal story and your own personal commitment. And that should be, and also things that you have done in the past that are relevant and tie into what you are saying that you're aspiring to. And I think that will really help your application.
Good. I think those are great examples of things that you can do. And I'm going to talk a little bit about it from my perspective in a minute. Let me see. I have a couple of other questions. One, how I would answer that question. I will answer it later. Skills that are useful. I'll answer that one. Okay, these for you. Okay, here's one for the two of you. How did your internship on the Hill contribute to your career in the Foreign Service or in graduate school?
I think that, first of all, being on an opportunity to intern on the Hill is a great opportunity because, like the State Department, it's a very sought after opportunity. And so the number of skills that you receive in the area of professionalism are very, very useful while in graduate school, because you're interacting with other professionals, but also various writing exercises, note-taking exercises are very, very helpful. Thinking about things in very brief and concise memorandums as opposed to very scholastic and literary papers or long literary papers. Like, understanding the difference between those two things is something that's very, very useful, because in the State Department, academic writing and very technical professional writing are two different things. And so working on the Hill is something that is really helpful to kind of get your mind thinking about that skill set that you need to begin to develop.
Great.
So Sure, yeah, I would echo definitely what Mita said. I think that's absolutely true. I think just also generally, there is a really important thing to be said about having that congressional perspective on foreign policy, because the State Department and Congress work very differently, and often there can even be a little bit of a tension there. So I think having a really like on the ground perspective of how Congress sees foreign policy is really important when you're in the Foreign Service, and also just generally, even though the State Department has a lot of autonomy when it comes to foreign policy, ultimately Congress is the one that is funding us, and they're the ones going on codels, and we can't submit, for example, a treaty without the advice and consent of the Senate. So I think really understanding how Congress plays into those foreign policy issues and goals is a critical thing to bring to the Foreign Service, and I think it's a great benefit of us being able to serve on the Hill.
Great. Okay, I've got another question for you all. We're going to try to move it pretty quickly, so we still have a lot of stuff to cover. But the question is, did you apply for the Pickering Fellowship as well? If you did, were there any particular reasons as to why you chose the Rangel over Pickering?
I did. Yes, this is Marita. I did apply to both programs, and mainly the Rangel selection process is first, and I was able to get through the Rangel process successfully. And because I thought that it was a very good fit, I did not feel the need to proceed with my application for Pickering, and that's all.
Yeah, same with Marita. I also applied to Pickering. That's definitely true, and I would also add I had heard from people who had been in both programs so often about what they always called the Rangel family, and that was something
Right.
that I really loved about the reputation of the Rangel program, is that there is really this community, this network, this very tight-knit family kind of atmosphere that I was really excited to be able to accept that before having to go on to Pickering.
Great. One
Agreed.
more quick question for you two. During a graduate program, how did you apply the lessons learned from your internship to your classroom lectures and curriculum?
That's a great question. I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is um, writing cables in an embassy, kind of these policy style writing pieces, is a great skill, and I think it's definitely something that I've used in graduate school. Often, we don't always write like long thesis style papers. We write policy memos, and we try to be really persuasive and really succinct in our writing style. So that was really helpful, learning how to do that on the ground in an embassy with people that were, high level and actually implementing policies. So I think that is a great perspective, and I definitely have been employing that in my graduate classes.
Great. I'm going to
I
take
would
one more question,
agree.
and then I'm going to go back to the presentation. So this one's from Cynthia in Washington. If you had to describe the personality of the Rangel Fellowship, what would it be? Other than applicants with established interest in international affairs and a career in the Foreign Service, how would you describe the type of person that is typically selected for an interview and into the program? Um, that's a great question. And I would say that while our Rangel Fellows differ in so many different ways, I mean, they come with different backgrounds and different experiences, there are three things that I think I see in every successful Rangel Fellow. The first one is someone who wants to make a difference in the world. Again, they may have had lots of international experience or maybe more domestic, but there's someone that believes that for a career, they want to do something that helps the lives of others. And that really comes through. Again, the second one is somebody that believes in service. So again, that has worked in service, that has volunteer time, or that has done other things that help make a difference. And I would say the third thing is that there's someone that believes in being part of a group and supporting a group. So Rangel Fellows, I think, are incredible in terms of not only taking advantage of the opportunity to get mentoring from people, but also to give back, to mentor, to be part of a group, to support one another. And so I would say those are three things, sort of general characteristics that I see in all Rangel Fellows. And again, it's part of the reason they're so terrific. So thanking both Jessica and Marita, I'm going to go on, and you all are welcome to listen to the rest of it, or if you have something else to do, I do understand. Let me go back and I see some more questions. I'm going to answer some of them as I go through the rest of it. So now, okay, you've decided you want to do it. How do you apply? Well, first thing, eligibility criteria. These are the 3 basic criteria, and these are criteria we cannot waive. The first is that you have to be a U.S. citizen, and you have to be a U.S. citizen on the day that you apply. You can be a new U.S. citizen. You may have gotten your citizenship 2 weeks ago, but you do have to be a U.S. citizen. The second is you have to have a cumulative GPA of at least 3.2. The third is that you have to be preparing to enter graduate school in fall of the year you apply for a 2-year master's program at a U.S. institution. So again, you are actually applying for graduate school in fall 2014, and it's a 2-year program. You are applying to graduate school simultaneously. So it's a separate process, but chances are you're doing it at the same time. Somebody asked me if you're actually applying to Howard University itself, do you have to do a separate application? Yes. So you're doing separate applications to all of the schools to which you want to apply. Hang on just a second. Get this down. How do I get to the next one? Hang on a second. Technical issue here. I just want to get this to move. Yeah. Oh, good. Okay, selection process. Sorry, got through that technical issue. Okay, so we're going to give 20 fellowships in 2014. Things that we look at: your personal statement, your academic background, financial need, letters of recommendation, community service and leadership, and honors and awards. Again, you're going to apply by January 17th. By the end of February, you'll know whether or not you're selected as a finalist. You'll know one way or the other. We do it by email, and we reach out to everybody. We will bring you in and have you interview one day between March 12th and 14th. If you're selected, I will talk to all of you and tell you, what the interview will be like. We try to be very transparent in terms of what to expect so that you come really ready to do your best on the day of the interview. Again, you're only here for one of those days. Generally, you interview in the morning with our panel, do a writing exercise in the afternoon, or vice versa. So this year, it's Wednesday through Friday. So we interview all day Wednesday, all day Thursday. We interview half day on Friday. We stop the interviews. We put the selection panel into a room. We stop feeding them and giving them liquids. And by the end of the day, they come out with their decisions. And we'll probably notify. Our plan is to notify on March 15th. Yes, that is a Saturday, but honestly, I could never wait to tell people. So I'm guessing that we're going to be here on Saturday, letting you know. Partly it's also because we really need to get moving on it. We have lots to do. We need to get your congressional placements. We need to tell your graduate school so they can give you lots of extra money. So there's many things that we do. Okay. Application components, again, it's all on our internet site, but it's, again, your personal statement, it's up to 600 words, a financial needs statement, that's up to 400 words, 2 letters of recommendation, one from a faculty and one from a community leader. I'll explain that in a moment. The second is, another thing is proof of U.S. citizenship, and you're just going to upload that right into your application. Your student aid report, which is generated by FAFSA. That can be done using either 2012 or 2013 data. You're going to give us transcripts from all colleges and universities you've attended. So if you've gotten credit from a university or a college, you have to send us your transcript. At this point, they can be student copies. They don't have to be official. If you're selected for an interview, you're going to bring us your official transcript just to make it a little bit easier on you. At this point, we take transcripts that are student transcripts. One suggestion, though, make sure they're easy to read. Sometimes we get one that are really long, like there's one class on each page, so you have to look through 35 pages in order to see your transcript. That's probably too informal. It's just a lot of work. So make sure your student transcript is readable. Official financial aid statement from applicant's senior year. This is part of understanding your financial situation. If you didn't get financial assistance, you do not have to provide this. If you did, again, sometimes your schools will actually send you, you can ask your registrar or your financial aid and they will give you a letter. Sometimes anymore they won't. Sometimes you've been out of school too long, or so give us some documentation. Maybe you have a letter when you actually got financial aid, or there's something on your school website or something. Please do provide us with some type of documentation if you got financial aid. If you didn't, it's not a problem. You don't have to provide that. And you need to give us your GRE scores. You don't have your GRE scores sent directly to us. They sent to you, and then you just upload them into your application. So again, you do not have to send them directly to us. You need to have your GRE scores, send them or give them to us, whether or not your school requires them. We do require them. We do not give specific points for them, but we do use them as a reference document. Okay, so the big question is, how do you prepare a competitive application? What makes an application stand out? First thing to do is just look at the Foreign Service, look at the Rangel program, decide if it's something you're really interested in and whether or not you're eligible. We don't want you to put in the work, again, if you can't do it. Once you decide you do it, think about your statement of interest. And I always say a good statement of interest answers three basic questions. Why do you want to join the Foreign Service? What do you bring? And who are you? Now, what does that mean? Why do you want to join the Foreign Service? This is a fellowship that goes into the Foreign Service. So why do you want to do it? What are the things that motivate you? Is there something in your past that really made you want to do this? Or is there an issue or a group of issues or an area that you're really excited about, that you really want to make a difference on? Is it the career itself? Is it the lifestyle? So what is it about the Foreign Service that really attracts you? The second question is, what do you bring? And again, it could be your academic background, it could be some job experience, international experience, and that experience can be either in the United States or overseas, or maybe it's experience dealing with other cultures, maybe within the United States, and there are cultural issues that aren't even involved with international affairs. Maybe it's working with different socioeconomic groups, or I don't know, different job cultures, or something that shows that your cultural adaptability. We're also always interested if you've ever had to overcome any obstacles in your life. That's always important to us. Let me see. Your writing should be important in here. Let's see, challenges, any, relevant work experience you have, or experience that is relevant maybe from an internship or some volunteer experience. One thing I can suggest, if you can just Google in Foreign Service 13 Dimensions, these are the 13 dimensions that the State Department looks for when it hires. It's things like organizational skills, leadership skills, composure. These are skills that we care about. So if there's something you've done that would show these, that's also useful. So think of all these things, kind of write down something, give yourself some ideas of things you want the panel to know about you. And then as you package them, you get to the third question, which is, who am I? There is a story, and this is something that both Jess and Marita suggested, that only the two of you, that only you can tell. That really tells the panel who you are. Again, what motivates you, what you bring, but it personalizes it for the panel. Now, a personal statement is not easy. You only get 600 words to do this. And I'm sure you can think of thousands of words because you've all done so much already. Your goal is to be able to say it in 600 words. So general suggestions on things to leave out of personal statements. One of them is the really long quotation. Sometimes we get, a long quotation by, Martin Luther King or John F. Kennedy. They aren't applying you are. So that sometimes it's not that it will waste space, but you could use space differently, I think. So don't worry about the long quotation. If you want to start with an anecdote or something that got you interested, keep it short so you really get to the other things that you want to discuss. If you tell us, you don't have to also prove to us what you know. So if you tell us you're really interested in the Foreign Service because you really care about human rights and women's issues in the Middle East, that's great. You don't then have to tell us about women's situation in the Middle East. One, assume that our panel knows. Two, you need to get on to other things. So just really stay focused on what it is you want the panel to know. I always suggest don't look at an old statement, come up with something new, blank sheet of paper. These are my motivations. This is what I bring, a few points I want them to know about me, and then craft your statement. It's going to be too long the first time. Cut it back, look at it again, ask somebody else to read it for you. By the end, when we see it, we really should be able to know, why you want to join the Foreign Service, what you bring, and a little bit about who we are. We want to be interested in meeting you. So that's your personal statement. The next thing that's very important is your academics. So again, we look at your transcripts and we're interested in academic ability and rigor in studies. Does this mean that GPA, again, you have to have a 3.2, but does it mean that the person who gets a 3.9 is always going to get it over the person that has a 3.3? No, not at all. They're far more interested, did you study a variety of different things? Is it relevant in some ways to the Foreign Service? And again, you can have a undergraduate degree in any area as long as you are able to explain, why it's relevant. Did you challenge yourself? Did you take a variety of different courses? Sometimes, you had a period where your grades perhaps were not as good. Maybe, your freshman year, you hadn't decided what you wanted, or something else. Again, our panel is terrific about trying to look behind the grades and really see you. So I will tell you, they look at your transcripts really carefully. The next thing is strong letters of recommendation and monitoring arrival. You get 2 letters of recommendation. One is from an academic, basically a faculty, and the other one is from a community leader. And a community leader is someone who can help the panel understand you as an emerging professional. Basically, somebody that has seen you work. They can talk about things like your work ethic, maybe your commitment to public service, maybe your organizational skills or your interpersonal skills. And it could be your boss at work, or it could be a faculty advisor to a student organization, or maybe someone who supervised you in an internship. They would all be very relevant. An important thing for both letters of recommendation, pick people who know you and like you. And every time I say that, people kind of laugh and say, well, of course. But very often we find that people will try to stretch and say, well, I worked in a congressman's office, so I'll get the congressman to write my letter of recommendation. However, if the congressman doesn't know you, it's hard for him to write a really enthusiastic letter of recommendation. So maybe the right person is the chief of staff, who actually was the person you worked with. Again, for your academic, it may not be the chairman of the department. We don't care if it's the chairman of the department or someone who's been, who's worked at the university for 2 years. We want somebody who's really enthusiastic about you. And so we care less about the person's position. So again, find people that know you and like you. Tell them what the program is about. You can actually go to our website under application requirements, and you can just click on the link, and you can see what kind of questions they're going to answer about you. You won't actually see their letters. You're going to give us their name and their email addresses. We're going to contact them directly, and then they're going to send us the letter directly, so you won't see it, but you can see what we're going to ask them about. So if you want to make any suggestions to them, you certainly can. Remember that a letter of recommendation that's written for this specific opportunity is always stronger than a general one. So sometimes we get letters that say, he is a fine young man and he will do well in whatever he chooses in life. That's not that specific. I mean, it's much better to say, he was an outstanding student. He had the kind of analytical and writing skills that will make him a very successful Foreign Service officer. Given his interest in issues like human rights and trafficking in persons, I see him being the type of Foreign Service officer will really make a difference. In that case, the person's really speaking to the opportunity. So what that means is you might need to tell them a little bit about this fellowship. Maybe give them, you can, download our flyer from our website, give them a copy, have them really speak to the opportunity. That's really useful. Then make sure their letters of recommendation get in on time. You can see on our website, on your application, whether or not the letter came in. If not, remind them politely. Here's your diplomatic skills. The most common reason people don't finish applications is because somebody doesn't send in a letter of application or letter of recommendation. So please do monitor that carefully. If there's a problem, let us know. If you have any questions on this or anything else, you can always contact James or me. We're always happy to answer questions. So that's your letter of recommendation. The next thing is demonstrating financial need for graduate school. Now, there is no formula for deciding financial need. The panel looks at a variety of things. You're going to write a 400-word essay that talks to us about your financial need. This is really important because it helps us understand, again, why you need money for graduate school. And many of you may come from very different backgrounds and have different ways of showing financial need. So maybe one of you got through or has a lot of educational debt from your undergraduate. So maybe you're $60,000 worth of educational debt. So you do not have any money for graduate school and you have a lot of money to pay back. That's certainly a financial need. Maybe another one of you doesn't have a lot of educational debt, but you had to work throughout the time you were going to school. Maybe another of you picked a less expensive school. Maybe you did 2 years at a community college and then went to a state school because it was less expensive. Maybe somebody else has no educational debt, but you got through on, the scholarships that you got as an undergraduate. Another of you actually had some parental assistance when you were an undergraduate, but you aren't going to for graduate school. Whatever your story is, this is the time to tell us. Maybe a little bit about your background and, again, why you need assistance for graduate school. Okay, that's the point of the 400-word essay. Then you're also going to put in your FAFSA SAR. You'll answer a couple of questions on the application. Most of them come from the FAFSA SAR. A couple of them are just general questions about your background. Please just answer them. Again, there is no specific formula. If my parents have money, does that mean I will not get the fellowship? No. Not necessarily. Again, we look at everything all together. So these are all things to think about when you do financial need. The next thing is to list all relevant extracurricular, community, or volunteer experiences and highlight leadership roles. So again, the Foreign Service is about service. So we want people that really care about making a difference in their community or on their campuses. So please list under the part that talks about volunteer experience, work experience, list things that you've done. And don't just say, Habitat for Humanity, because maybe you showed up one week, and drove in some nails, or maybe, you coordinated meals for a year. Those are two very different levels of engagement. So tell us a little bit about what you did. Also highlight if you have any leadership experience. And that could be, I was vice president of my senior class, but maybe you coordinated a specific activity, or you spearheaded the fund drive, or you created a program, or whatever. Try to think of words that show leadership when you're explaining either, again, your community service, some of the job experience that you have. Think of good, strong action verbs to tell us a little bit about what you did. That's always very helpful. Okay, next thing is listing any college, university, or professional honors and awards. So you made the dean's list, or so you won a prestigious scholarship, or maybe you did a Fulbright, or whatever it is, please list that for the panel. My final suggestion is that you proofread all aspects of your application carefully. This is a very competitive award. You want your entire application to look good. Also, submit the application materials online. So the application actually closes on January 17th at midnight. Do not wait till January 17th at 11:30 to submit your, application, because then you can't upload your transcripts or something. And I will have to tell you that, at 11:45, we are not in the office. So again, try to get it in early. That way, if there's any problems, we can deal with them. Again, James and I are always here, except at 11:45 in the evening, to help you with anything that goes on with your application. This fellowship only works if we get great people, so we really want to help you in any way that we can to understand this process. Now, I am going to, some pictures of our Rangel Fellows. I'm going to look back at my questions again and find out what it is I have not answered. Hang on just a second. Okay. Okay. Oh, if you've taken and passed the Foreign Service Officer test, which is our written test in the past, but didn't make it to the oral assessment, do you think that would help or hurt your application? You are not required to take the Foreign Service Officer test, but honestly, it's a great way of showing that you've been interested in the Foreign Service. Remember, that's what the purpose of it is. So the fact that you have taken the Foreign Service Officer test is a positive thing to us. You didn't pass it the first time. That is true of actually most Foreign Service officers. There's nothing to be, sensitive about with that. The fact that you've taken it, I think that's great. If you haven't, again, that's okay too. But again, it's one way of showing that you have a continuing interest in the Foreign Service. Let's see. Commenting on future goals and how your experiences and skills gained. I'm guessing that this has to do with our two fellows. Okay. Oh, Rangel, I see the one question on the Pickering Fellowship, and I'm going to answer that one too. You can absolutely apply to both the Rangel and the Pickering Fellowships. Don't worry, we have 20 fellowships. They have 20 fellowships. If it were me, I would apply to both too. We do actually select first. If you are offered a Rangel Fellowship, you need to select. So because by the time they make their selections, we've already gotten you placed in congressional internships. We've done your funding package. So if you select the Rangel Fellowship, you are withdrawn from competition for the Pickering. But again, they're both great, and you double your chances. So I would absolutely apply to both. And again, it doesn't bother us in any way if you do so. Let me see. I'm applying. Okay, here's another question. I'm applying to the Fulbright as well. If I get a Fulbright grant, would I be able to defer the fellowship for the next school year, or would I need to reapply? Excellent question. The answer is yes. We have one reason that we defer the Rangel Fellowship, and that is for the Fulbright Fellowship. So if you apply to the Rangel program and you get the Fulbright, we will let you defer a year. Now, we've done it in different ways. It depends when your Fulbright starts. So we've had people that have done the congressional internship with us and then gone on and done the Fulbright and started school later, or have started school and then done their Fulbright. It all has to do with the timing, but we'll work really carefully with you on that. If it's for something other than the Fulbright, generally we do not give deferments, and you would have to make a decision. Let's see. Okay. Let's see. Anything else I'm not getting? Question. Is the 11-week internship on Capitol Hill paid? We give you a stipend. So with the stipend, I think for the first summer is $7,000. We also pay for your housing. We pay for your transportation. The entire package is worth about $10,000. For the second summer, yes, we give you a stipend. I think it's around $6,700 because it's only 10 weeks. We pay for your transportation, your medical insurance, and the embassy provides you with housing. So again, that's why we say the fellowship is worth about $90,000. About $20,000 of that is for 2 internships. $40,000 is for your tuition and fees, and $30,000 is for your academic year stipend. Let's see. I'm trying to think if there's see any questions here I haven't answered. Two skills I can work on now. Um, let's see, that would help us prepare. Two skills that we can work on now to prepare for a successful Foreign Service career. I would highlight writing and trying to think of professional writing. We do a lot of writing in the Foreign Service. Anything you can do that really helps you explain a problem in a clear and concise way. Foreign Service writing is policy writing, so we get to the point. Um, we answer the so what question, why does this matter? So anything you can do to practice your writing skills is very useful. The other thing is anything you can do to practice your presentation skills. We represent the United States, so we're often called upon to uh, talk to groups, we talk to foreign officials, we talk to NGOs. So you want to get comfortable um, talking and representing. Those are two things that you can do right now. They're also helpful for you when you do our interview because, again, you will be talking to our selection panel and you will be doing an